Elijah, more good players, you will win more games and ultimately take you places that you want to go. So congratulations. By the way, I learned this morning as well, sir. I'll let you guess. You like to do this to me, so now I'm going to do this to you.
Ooh, I love a good guessing game.
The last time, because now they've done it, now we see it. The last time before these past two titles that the Big Ten Conference had back-to-back national college football champions. Last time.
Was it in the BCS era? Was it even
not?
I was going to say this is probably when people
Elijah
were still
Campbell,
voting.
I'm going
on
to tell you
polls.
something. I'm going to tell you something. I'm older than you, as you know, and I have discussed.
I figured out.
I was not alive.
Wow.
1965-66, Michigan State. That's the last time the Big Ten Conference had back-to-back national college football champions. And you know what we did back then, Elijah Campbell? And I say we, I wasn't even born. Just made that point to you.
Voted on it.
They voted on it, my man. They voted on it. So is that what people, so if somebody's complaining about where we are now, do you want to go back to voting? I don't think you do.
No.
I thought this was a great tournament overall.
Agreed.
There were some very good games. There were some very bad games. You know what that is, man? That's sports. A reflection of sports. Thank you.
That's nothing we don't already experience.
That is a reflection
anywhere
of sports.
Else.
I believe this will grow. Maybe this coming season, maybe not. We'll talk about that a little bit later on during the course of the program. But overall, I thought this was good for college football. I am thrilled that it got more areas of the country involved. I am here for even more home games in the very near future as soon as they can give them to us. I want to see more home games. Imagine, Elijah, if Notre Dame and Penn State had been in State College. Imagine, Elijah, if Texas and Ohio State had been in Austin based on the seeding of the bracket for the CFP. That would have been fantastic, in my opinion. I understand why some powers that be feel beholden to a bowl system, whatever. I don't agree with them, but I'm not going to win that argument anytime soon. But nevertheless, I thought it was great. I thought last night's game was good. I'm happy for Marcus Freeman. I'm happy for Ryan Day. I hope at least for a couple of weeks, Ohio State fans will get off Ryan Day's back and stop harassing his family at school and around, at the local Kroger up there in Columbus.
I feel like you kind of have to now. He kind of won the ultimate prize in the sport. I don't think there's really anything anybody can tell him.
They will for a minute, man, but you know how it is. You know how it is.
It's just pretty weak.
Yeah, but overall, I thought this was a fantastic football game, and I think Notre Dame, coming back around to the game itself, I think Notre Dame. You push back on me if you want to. I think Notre Dame did about as much as Notre Dame could over the course of 60 minutes of football. The third and long play that Ohio State converted, you knew what was coming. If you're the Notre Dame defense, they are going to attempt to hit the best player on the field. We need to not let them. And I told you earlier this morning, when Smith went there, it was one-on-one coverage. It's like you're either going to hit that pass and complete it for a big game, it's going to get picked off just like a punt, or it's going to fall incomplete, and then they'll punt. But you knew what was coming. And you didn't stop it. And to me, I'm not going to say that was the moment, but for all intents and purposes, I'll come as close to that as I can. That you had to make that play. You didn't make that play. And you know why you didn't make that play? Because that dude's better than you.
Because that guy is going to be a future all-pro wide receiver.
Yeah.
Feel pretty good of proclaiming that right now, even though he's, 19 years old?
It's crazy.
I feel pretty good proclaiming that already.
It's crazy that he, based on and remember, people, the NFL is preventing him from being an NFL player. Not, don't say this. I can't believe they make him go to college. They don't make him go to college.
And it's always been that way. That thing is, even for the traditionalists out there, this has always been the case.
Yeah, the NFL sets its entry requirements, and those requirements say you got to be 3 years removed from high school. And at this point, he is not. And yet, I guarantee you, if he were in this April's draft, he'd go top half of the first round.
He'd be the first receiver taken.
Yeah, probably so.
Guarantee it. Be the first
probably
one. Because he's unguardable in college, man.
Yeah.
I mean, I think if there's anything that you discovered in this playoff run is that he torched Tennessee's secondary, which was a really good secondary in the SEC this year. And that league, torched them, torched Oregon, then, gets kind of bracketed. Didn't really torch Texas, but Texas had to double team and bracket and do all this type of stuff to try to take him away. And then Notre Dame, who plays more man coverage than anybody in college football, learned the hard way as to maybe why you shouldn't against Ohio State sometimes. And I'm not really mad at them for doing that. I think that wasn't probably Notre Dame's worst mistake in the game. I think trying a field goal when you're down 16 and 9 minutes left, when the other team is marching down the field at 7-minute drives apiece, I think was probably a more egregious mistake. Or, having the worstly disguised fake punt in the history of all fake punts is probably more of an egregious mistake. But still, I mean, ultimately, I think you're right in terms of that play was the dagger. That was Notre Dame's, their golden ticket to getting themselves a shot at winning that game, and came down to that one play, and Jeremiah Smith did what he did. He's good. That kid's unguardable, man.
As you might expect, and we'll touch on this, we've got the way too early top 25s. We've got the Vegas odds on who wins a title next year. We'll jump into some of those things for you. We'll have more on this ball game. By the way, Ryan Day has now coached 80 games as the head coach of Ohio State.
Already, man.
He is 70-10, which means good. 4 of his losses are to Michigan and 6 are to whoever else. Crazy.
Wow, I'm trying to think of who those 6 were. Georgia.
I think 2 of them are to Oregon, right?
Would 2 be to Oregon? I know he lost the one this year.
A couple years ago.
That's right. I forgot. In Columbus. Yeah. So he has 2 to Oregon. So there's 6.
4 to Michigan, and then 4 to I don't even know who.
Alabama in a title game, and then Georgia in a playoff. So really, we're missing 2 more.
Probably
Purdue got him once. I know Purdue got him once on a college game day game.
Yeah. Has Penn State beaten them in the regular season?
I think Urban Meyer was there the last time. It might have been. No, I think it was Penn State. I think Penn State did get him. I think that was when Ryan Day was there.
Yeah. No Michigan State.
Because that would have been
2016.
2016. So that would have been like Ryan Day's maybe his first year. I can't remember if Urban Meyer was there or not. But
yeah,
I mean, it's potentially we're looking at like he's only lost to like Penn State, Purdue, Alabama, Georgia, Michigan. Like only 5 teams in that span.
We'll get into more of that for you. The commissioner of the ACC, we're not going to touch on this on the other side, but the commissioner of the ACC wants to rethink or reimagine the Atlantic Coast Conference football championship game. I applaud the effort. I'll just leave it at that for now.
At this point, I don't even applaud the effort after reading it. I don't applaud the effort.
And we will touch on some Gamecock things for you here. Again, how things are starting to shape up for the football season in terms of what the national folks are saying as we do the way too early look aheads that we just mentioned. We'll also touch on basketball. Terrific weekend against Oklahoma for the women. Not so much for Lamont Paris and the men's team. 803-404-6100 to be a part of the program. Jay and Elijah, the Tuesday postgame show. All right, welcome back in. Postgame show rolling on this Tuesday. Welcome back in. Imagine a lot of you are making your way home. If you are somewhere around the Midlands, hang on a second here because I can tell that my phone, for whatever reason, even though it says it's muted, the sound is coming out of my phone on the StreamYard app. There we go. Hi. Welcome back.
Learning technology.
Yeah. Not really here for that.
Jay Phillips
not gonna lie
learns
to you.
how StreamYard works.
Yeah. Oh, well, I use this. This is what we use when I was down in Hilton Head, right?
It was. Yeah.
Yeah. And otherwise, I just let you, when we're on remote together, I just let you be the face of the program.
Naturally.
Okay, we don't. Nobody needs to see it.
Which is a great idea.
I will say you can't see it right now,
The
but
face of radio.
it's snowing at my house, man. So it's kind of cool.
I guess now you've convinced me to lift the curtains up. Now there's a reason. Now there's a reason.
Again, I have been on record as saying that we have amazing windows in our studio in downtown Columbia, South Carolina, looking out on Gervais Street over across to Trinity Cathedral and the State House. But of late, for a variety of reasons, a couple of which are probably good. We have these big blackout curtains now. So we could be anywhere. We could be in some bunker, in Montana.
Which would be an awesome place to do a radio show, honestly. You keep it stocked with snacks.
Would it? But there's a snack machine downstairs. Dave raids that thing all the time, man.
They got to pay for it, though.
Elijah, learn how to rock the machine, man.
That one's already that's 2 steps ahead. You can't do the trick as much.
No.
The arm trick.
So, again, Ohio State, your national champion, Notre Dame, your runner-up. What are we looking at for Notre Dame? I think Marcus Freeman, I agree with a lot of people that Marcus Freeman has maybe made Notre Dame more likable than they've been in a long, long time, maybe ever in some people's minds. That's all well and good for a little while, but is that going to really make a difference when it comes to the recruiting trail, Elijah Campbell? I think the answer is no. What kind of quarterback do they go get? Where is the line drawn for that football program at what is obviously a church-funded school in terms of NIL dollar? I'm not saying, hey, we can't go do this. We got to spend our money somewhere else. They'll find ways to spend plenty of money. Notre Dame always has. But where is that line drawn? Do we expect Notre Dame now in a 12-team format, maybe going to 14 or 16, to be there annually most years? Is this kind of a one-off? Do we expect more 7 and 5s than we do ones? I'm not really sure at this point. I know what I expect for Ohio State. But I don't know about Notre Dame right now. I think this format is good for them, but I'll be curious to see if they are amongst those that remain in this tournament for years and years to come.
I don't see why not. I mean, especially considering they get to take home the $20 million in TV revenue share from this game, and they don't have to split it with any of their conference members because guess what, Jay Phillips?
Don't have one.
There's no one to share it with.
Yeah,
they ain't in one.
I agree.
They get to keep a lot of that money, and they've been recruiting really well. I mean, that's the one thing I think Marcus Freeman's done a better job than Brian Kelly ever did at Notre Dame, was be able to recruit even despite some of the limitations that they have in terms of what their academic standards are compared to maybe other schools that are constantly in that tier, right, of constantly contending for a national title. I think he's done a better job with that. He's also a better football coach overall and kind of gets more out of his talent. I think
of
you
the
have
schools,
that guy, then that's going to help out a lot.
Of the schools that are considered amongst football's most elite programs and on a pretty regular basis, vie for the top of the sport, is there one that is more academically challenging annually than Notre Dame? And I mean, I know Stanford might be and Northwestern might be.
They're not constantly up there. They it's very cyclical, I guess, with them. Stanford, I mean, they won some Rose Bowls in the aughts and 2010s.
Yeah. But Notre Dame, it really is. It's difficult, and they don't They don't do much to pull that back. So, um, overall, again, I just think Ohio State was the best team in the country and
The deserving national champion.
and the deserving national champion. I think that's the way to look at it here. I will be curious. We talked about this too. The TV ratings. I haven't seen them yet. In fact, I just punched up during the commercial break. I just punched up overnights just to see. Nothing's out as of yet. I imagine they'll be out pretty soon to at least give us an idea of what happened in the biggest markets. But the previous record was 33.4 million for the Ohio State-Oregon game 10 years ago. I doubt that game last night, as big as the names are, I doubt that game last night did that kind of number.
Yeah, I don't think so either. And naturally, too, you're going up against like a presidential inauguration, no matter who it is, right? Like we could be swearing in the corpse of Calvin Coolidge, and it's still going to rate a lot because of exactly what it is. That type of stuff, regardless of presidency or whatever, always rates really high. And even the coverage after the fact. So like there is some natural competition in terms of just like what's going on in the world that it competes against. So I think that will take away some, probably not a ton, but I think the natural curiosity will help a little bit too. I think a lot of people even will watch Ohio State and Notre Dame because they're probably two of the more hated programs in the country as well. Two of them, maybe the top 5, 6, maybe in terms of most hated. But it's I think they'll be just below that number. My guess is probably in the 27, 28 range, just because it is a college football national championship. I think it's going to draw still going to draw pretty well. And if the attendance last night is any indication, like I think the lowest get-in prices to the stadium was like $1,800, and it was a packed stadium. And what stadium holds up a pretty decent amount of people. So
70s, in the 70s.
Yeah. So I mean, mid 70s, I think. But they packed it pretty well, man. It was very well attended. So I think the interest in the game ultimately on a national level is still really high.
I agree. I can't imagine if that. Would you say that the lowest get-in price is 1,800?
I think so. That's what I heard this morning. I think that was on Split Zone too. I heard.
All right, then number. I can only imagine what it must have cost to sit in like that Delta Club. Have you been in that downstairs?
Oh, is that the one that's like on the the ground?
And it's awesome, man.
I bet that is. It looks really sick. Well, you're basically on the sideline.
I've not sat in it for any live event, but they did allow us. We had an all-star game party in there at Media Days a couple years back. We've been in there a couple times for that, and let me just say, man, it's all right. Hopefully they'll have one there this year that you'll get to go see.
Imagine watching a professional football game there. Like that would be pretty damn
it's
cool.
So cool, and it's right there, and yet you wouldn't want to leave. You'd be like, oh, there is a game going on, like 10 steps away. But anyway, Ohio State does, as you might imagine, in the AP poll, finish number 1. Not that matters. Notre Dame 2, Oregon 3, Texas 4, Penn State 5, Georgia number 6. Georgia, the highest ranked team that did not win a playoff game. So there's the SEC champion with 3 losses. Arizona State, Boise State, Tennessee, Indiana round out the top 10. Ole Miss was 11, followed by SMU, then BYU, Clemson number 14, the ACC champion, Iowa State 15. They were the Big 12 runner-up. Illinois, who of course beat Carolina to get to 10 wins, number 16. Bama 17, Miami 18, Gamecocks 19. Come back around to that in just a second.
Top 20 finish.
Syracuse, that's right, top 20 finish. Syracuse number 20. And then the final 5 in the AP poll, Army, Missouri, UNLV, Memphis, and Colorado. We'll come back on the other side. We'll continue talking college football, but we'll come back locally. Gamecocks, again, finishing in the top 20. That's good. Where are they projected for next season? We'll touch on that for you. Heisman odds for Lenora Sellers, even national championship odds for the Gamecocks, ahead of some pretty big names in the way too early stuff. All that and more on what is now a snowy afternoon in Columbia, South Carolina, at least in the downtown area. It's the Postgame Show. All right, so it's snowing in downtown Columbia. Listen, I don't know if they have any in stock because it doesn't snow here very much. But if you need a snow blower, I guarantee you, Cato's Power Equipment can get you one. They probably have one in. They can fix one up for you if you got one that's like maybe you moved from up north, not working very well. I'm telling you that service department at Cato's can get anything fixed. So check it out. But if you want one, hey, why not? You probably will never use it in the South. But maybe just a regular blower, right? Or an edger, trimmer, brand new lawnmower, riding mowers, walk behind mowers, whatever it is that you might need. Plus now, so much equipment that is battery powered. So many things that won't break on that, right? So many fewer moving parts. Matt and Ben have been telling me for a while that these things are the trend, that these batteries are very powerful. The equipment is just like what you'd expect from gas-powered equipment, but a lot easier to use and a lot more efficient. Stop in and see them, 4012 West Beltline Boulevard. That's Cato's Power Equipment. Talking college football's national championship. Ohio State wins it last night, 34-23. Gamecock football, Clemson football, both finishing in the top 20. And we start looking ahead to next year because it's football. It's college football, and that's what we do. ESPN, I know Stuart Mandel has one of his polls out. I imagine this is from Schleybaugh. More than, let me see. Did Schleybaugh do this one, Elijah? Yes, Mark Schleybaugh.
Yes, I would say.
Has Ohio State number 1 going into the next season.
Fair. They're still Ohio State.
Texas number 2. Penn State 3. Notre Dame 4. See, I'm going to pause for a second. Notre Dame has some pretty good returning players, but I don't know who's going to be their quarterback.
Nope, they don't either.
I know they've got a couple of defensive linemen that they're losing that they like a lot. So there are some holes there, but they'll have a pretty favorable schedule. So that helps. Georgia, number 5. Oregon 6. Clemson, number 7. Are we ready for Clemson to be, quote, back? They did win the ACC again. South Carolina beat them up there, obviously, and Shane would love nothing more than to have a win streak started against the Clemson Tigers. They're doing more in the transfer portal this year than they've probably done in Dabo's other years combined. That's not me ragging on him. That's finally him embracing it. Good for him. They just brought in Tom Allen to be their new defensive coordinator. Excellent hire. Cade Klubnik showed us this year, Elijah, that he is very good in all facets of the offense.
And yeah, he'll be in year 3, full year 3.
Yep.
As the starter.
Right. I don't think there's any question Clemson is going to be the best team in the ACC. I don't know how much ahead of SMU they're going to be seen as right now. How good does Fran really have Syracuse playing? Does Bill Belichick make a difference? Florida State won't be wretched again. I can't possibly imagine they're as bad as they were again this past season. Now,
I'd be mighty impressed if they follow up 2-10 with another 2-10.
Yeah, and if they do, that's obviously indicative of something much, much larger, right? So I don't see that, but I think it's very fair to say Clemson should be the best team in the ACC. LSU 8.
Dude, they restocked in the portal, man. They got some receivers in that transfer portal. I think Nussmeier coming back is pretty helpful, and getting Barry and Brown from Kentucky and Nick Anderson from Oklahoma. And I'm telling you, Oklahoma really they could tell you that they really missed having Nick Anderson this year because of injury. But LSU probably did the most work in terms of what you did to your roster for next season in the transfer.
But did they make it better? Because they lose. I mean, Lacey, Daniels, Campbell, Jones, Greg Penn, Braden Swinson up front on defense. They're losing dudes, man.
Harold Perkins is coming back, and receiver wise, like Daniels wasn't very productive. All right. Kyron Lacey was really good. But I mean, Barry and Brown is almost every bit as productive.
He's good. That was a good.
And Anderson was almost 1,000-yard receiver, not this past year, but the year prior, with Dylan Gabriel as his quarterback. So I think you got 2 number 1s that you have there.
And I like Nussmeier a lot, and that can be a difference maker.
They'll score points. And ever since Brian Kelly's been there, they'll score points. I have no doubt that offense is still going to continue to do its thing. We're just going to have the same discourse going into next year in July that we did this past July of can Blake Baker get that defense turned around? And I guess they weren't wretched like they were the year before, but it's got to get better. If you don't have a top 30 or even top 20 defense, then you're going to miss out on what your ceiling is again for the 3rd straight year.
So LSU number 8, BYU number 9. They won 11 games this past season and bring back a lot, including a bunch of dudes on offense that should continue to make a big difference. So good for the Cougars to be where they are. South Carolina Gamecocks, Elijah Campbell, according to Mark Schleybaugh on January the 21st, are the 10th best team in America. You buying into that?
Wow, that's pretty high. I think I'm more leaning towards where The Athletic has them, and that's at 16. I think maybe in that range, because look, it's going to be, even if you do hit some home runs in the portal, I don't know if you're hitting home runs at what Kyle Kennard was, right? And then you still have to replace all of that production on the interior to the defensive line, which might take a few weeks to get, to see what you got there. I don't think you just lose that core of the defensive line and what you got the linebacker position with D Knight and Debo, and with what you had with Nick Emenwari, and are immediately what you were for the entirety of this year. What you're going to look like in the last 5 or 6 weeks of the season will be a lot different. And I think you can still be top 10 level good, but I think you're going to take some lumps on the defensive side of the ball as we stand right now through the first couple weeks of the years, because you did have to make so much change. And in terms of what the roster's looking like on that side of the football, offensively, I think you're still going to be really good. I think, Lenore's coming back is going to be nice. I think he's going to be a legit candidate for the Heisman once we start the season. And when people have their, early season Heisman ballots, he'll probably be the 5 or 6 names discussed as favorites to win it because of how he plays. I love Rasul Faison. I love that addition. I love, the tight end addition from Kentucky. Jordan Dingle, I think, can be a really big part of this offense. Offensively, I think it'll kind of be like what the inverse was last year, where the defense was so much ahead of the offense. The offense had to catch up. We'll have kind of the inverse this year. I think the defense, even with some talented players on it, will still have to catch up just because of the continuity standpoint.
Let me read what Schleybaugh writes about the Gamecocks. After a bounce-back campaign in which the Gamecocks won 4 more games than in 2023, including victories over A&M, Missouri, and Clemson, they'll have to replace the heart and soul of their defense this offseason. There are big personnel losses at all 3 levels, including Sanders and Kennard up front and Eminwari on the back end. 3 additions from the portal: defensive tackle Gabriel Brown-Lodindi, linebacker Sean Murphy, and end Jalen Brown might be able to help, he writes. Sellers will be working under new offensive coordinator Mike Shula, and improving his pocket presence and consistency will be a priority. Rasul Faison, who ran for 1,109 yards with 8 touchdowns at Utah State in 2024, will get a chance to replace leading rusher Rocket Sanders. If Sellers improves, the Gamecocks might be an even bigger surprise in 2025. I don't have a lot of concern about whether or not Lenoris Sellers improves. I unless I look at it like this, and I'm kind of giving you some worst case scenario things here, Elijah, for everybody to ponder. If his relationship with Mike Shula doesn't blossom the way it did with Dowell Loggins, and I have no reason to believe it won't, but if it doesn't, if they just for whatever reasons don't click, again,
that possibility is non-zero. I'll say that low, but not zero. Never zero.
Yeah. Well, again, you and I have talked about it. That first half against LSU, you could tell that Dowell was dialing it up for Lenoris, and then we had the hiccup with Lenoris getting hurt and missing a couple of games and just not being himself when Mississippi came to town. Then they clicked again in Tuscaloosa. A couple of plays that you'd love to have back, but by and large, Lenoris played a very good game in Tuscaloosa, and the Gamecocks played a pretty good game that day. And then they didn't lose again until Illinois. So, if that is there, and I know Mike was a big part of it, and Shane made reference throughout the course of the season how much of an impact Mike was having on Lenoris too. So that should make Carolina fans feel a whole lot better. But I'm not really worried, if you will, about Lenoris in terms of coachability or desire, attitude, ability. All those things are there for him. Everything seems to be pointed on an upward trajectory for Lenoris Sellers.
Yeah, I'm not. That's the thing. That's my thing with the offense. I'm not worried about the offense at all. My biggest concern is just going to be how much of the defensive talent can you get together to be as productive as fast as possible, because you just change so much, and you're not, more than likely, statistically speaking, it's going to be hard to recreate what you did last season, especially considering the amount of players you had to get in the portal, right? Sometimes that continuity matters a lot. I think one of the reasons why your defensive unit last year was so good was because of your Tonka Hemingways, your TJ Sanders, your Nick Eminwaris, Debo Williams, guys who've been there for about 3 years, at least at the minimum at that point, and have been able to do a whole lot of growing over those last 3 years together, right? I think you had a lot of good depth, so I think the talent's still going to be there. Can you get it to where you're not taking lumps in the first couple weeks of the season on that side of the ball and having to avoid winning games and shootouts, right?
Yeah. We'll come back and tell you the Heisman odds for Lenoris Sellers and where the Gamecocks stand in terms of the betting odds as a national champion. Go over the rest of the way too early top 25 college football for next year. You're listening to the Postgame Show. All right, welcome back into the post-game show. Jay and Elijah with you. I'm working from home as Snowmageddon hits the Midlands.
It's snow.
Hey, yeah. Hey, you have to. Everybody can see me, right? You can see me, Elijah. Yeah.
Yes.
All right. Here's the best part of working.
You're visible.
Come here. Come on.
Oh, we're getting a dog. Yes.
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 That's the best part of working from home.
Yes. We get a dog
wants to
appearance on the show.
She wants to hang out.
She does.
where the
So
other-
bad. Give
the
her a
other one-
headset. Give her a
the other
headset.
one
Let her
is-
talk.
I hear the other one somewhere, but she. I don't know where she is, but this one's wanting to hang out.
She's
so that's
dying
good.
to get on air. She's got something
That's
to
right.
say. She's got thoughts on last night's national championship game. I think she too thinks that kicking a field goal down 16 with 9 minutes left to go in the game against Ohio State is cowardly.
Yeah,
I
here's
agree.
another one.
I agree.
So there you go.
Look at
All
all
right,
these
so everybody
friends.
see my dogs now.
Look at all these friends. That's what I'm talking
right.
about.
You think I could
Honestly,
bring 'em
all of
into the-
our radio shows would be better if we just had dogs. on
Yeah,
them.
we should bring them all into the office, right?
Absolutely.
We had our daughter's dog here for a while when she went to Japan, but she's back in Washington now. She's a big city dog, so it's it was a scene with 3 dogs. Anyway, welcome back in, Jay and Elijah with you. Watching the snowfall out my backyard and on the patio. It's nice, man. It's very tranquil.
It's great. I hate that it slowed down. I actually I miss watching snowfall. My dad has taunted me all winter long anytime because he knows I love snow. I love snow. And that
Well,
was
who
always my
doesn't,
favorite.
right?
Yeah, my favorite days growing up, man, were the snow days. But he has been sending me pictures all winter long. Because I mean, where he lives, they've gotten about 5 or 6 really big snows. And about 2 days ago, it snowed about 3 inches, and then they got an additional 3 or 4 yesterday, and it's not gotten above like 15 degrees there. So it's his entire front porch is covered about 3 or 4 inches thick, of snow on the railing, and it's been coming down there the last couple of days, and I've been incredibly jealous.
What's the expectation here in Columbia for accumulation? Do we have any forecast numbers on that as of yet? Because I got to be honest with you,
I've heard an inch.
Okay, because I was going to say right now, I'm looking out my back window, and I really don't see it sticking. It is currently. I've got right at 32. I don't know where the closest thermometer is for
30 here in the office, or at least the one that we have in the studio. And then I'm looking out the window right now, and it's not really sticking a ton.
It's beginning to accumulate on our patio furniture. I can look out here to my right, because again, I didn't put blackout windows on my French doors, so I can see outside.
Well, that's because you have French doors.
Great.
That's what they're there for.
Great.
Is to be able to look through.
It's good. Yes. Well, I figured those big, like 12-foot tall windows in our studio were also to look out of, but I was wrong.
Well, because you're facing forward, and if you're looking out the window the entire time, then you're not doing your job.
That's fair. Well, we can always move around in the studio, man. I can sit on the other side. I don't mind.
Yell at passersby.
Yeah, I'll be waving, man. I'm a nice guy. Just, hey, y'all doing? I'm a good person. I just want to wave at people. Let me try to move this camera so I can wave better there, like that. Like, hey,
like,
nice
hi.
to see you. Yeah, hi.
I'm Jay.
So we've going over the way too early top 25. South Carolina comes in at number 10. Clemson comes in at number 7. This according to Mark Schlabach. Mark was probably half lit last night about 3 a.m. putting this together for the 4-Letter Network's website.
I was gonna say, what is he doing if he's not? Like, that's kind of the best part of the
I'm
gig,
just
right?
kidding. Listen, Mark's a good dude, and I have no idea if he was half lit. He probably was not. That was just me saying that.
That's what I would do. That's what I would do. If I'm making a way too early top 25, or in any season,
help.
I'm gonna be half lit because that's a long time away from now, and I'm only gonna hate.
Well, if
the
you're
opinion
half
that I
lit
have.
doing one, then it's like Kentucky's number 6.
Yeah, and at that point, why not? Because it's one of those way too early. Then you can just say,
Virginia,
it was way
number
too
8.
early. There's a lot that could happen. I think on principle, the way too early top 25 after football or basketball season on like the night of the championship game is always really dumb because I'm one of those I like to like enjoy and let process the season that was now that it officially has its close,
Yep.
Sometimes I read a book and I like to sit for a while and process exactly what I just read before being like, what I want to read next. Right. Like
Yeah.
I will do that. Same thing with movies. I like to sit and kind of process exactly what happened. So if I was to ever do a top 25, a way too early top 25, I wouldn't even be half lit, brother. I'm going full send.
Yeah, you
I'm
may as
full
well.
lit, and
That's right.
you're going to get some fun in there. I'm going to put some teams that aren't even eligible to win a championship in there. Hampton at number 22.
Right, I was going to say Oregon State is your national champion.
Tennessee Tech at 11 going into next season. And then people get mad. I can be like, look, it was way too early. It says in the title. It's way too early.
There's a full disclaimer right there for you. Again, Iowa State 11, Alabama 12, Illinois 13, Arizona State 14, SMU 15, K-State 16, Indiana 17, Florida 18. There you go.
I saw one that has Florida at like 7.
Tennessee 19, and Louisville number 20. Man, I wish Carolina was playing Tennessee and Florida and Georgia next year.
That'd be nice.
I think, oh, Carolina's going to win, just because I want to see them play, because that's what they're supposed to do, right? That's what they're supposed to do. All right, we got some NFL to discuss. We'll get into more college football for you. Yes, we'll talk Carolina basketball as well on a Tuesday postgame show. Oh, another great thing about being at home today, where I am, I got sports on TV. And we do that in the studio, too, all thanks to integrated media. How are you watching whatever it is that you watch? Do it better than ever with our good friends at integrated media. I've been talking all month about resolutions. So resolve to be even better when it comes to home entertainment. 803-948-8327. Integrated media makes house calls. They come to you. You tell them what you want. You talk about what your budget numbers are, and then they help you dream up the best possible scenario for you and your family to enjoy everything. One room, whole house, outdoors, amazing sound throughout, security system, cameras, all controlled from the app on your phone. I love what integrated media has done for me. I can't talk about them enough. I'm telling you, they've changed our lives, and they can do the same thing for you. So check them out. Don't forget Pro Swing, too. Man, we had a good time out there on Friday. The great guys at Pro Swing and Integrated Media, 803-948-8327. All right, 4:00 on this Tuesday afternoon. Welcome back in. Postgame show rolling along with Elijah Campbell in the Herndon Chevy Studios. I'm Jay Phillips, working from home today as snowpocalypse hits the capital city. Or as Elijah keeps reminding me, it's just snowing a little bit.
I reserve the snowpocalypse title for anything over like 6 inches of snow.
Yeah, but you ain't from here, man.
Yeah, exactly.
So
this is just
we
snow.
get like 6 or 8 flakes, and it's like, oh.
And I get it, but you still can't call it. I feel like you still can't call it snowpocalypse because at that point it's just snow.
No, I'm just trying to exaggerate for effect.
It does have an effect.
Yeah, thanks. I did just go outside, took the dogs out real quick, and
what are their thoughts?
They've both seen snow. I think we had snow 3 years ago. So I don't know if they remember it or not. I mean, really, I think they just both had to go to the bathroom. I don't think they care.
They didn't like pander around out there. They didn't just
No, they would. I mean, I always joke. I mean, my big dog is a lab, and I always say, they're Canadian. They don't care. But the fact of the matter is, they're not Canadian. They're South Carolinian.
At this point, yeah.
Yeah, she's my dog's never been to Canada, despite what she may be named for. No, they were fine. I mean, they just kind of did what they needed to do, and they're like all of us. They'd rather come back inside and be where it's warm. So, although I think the lab would stay out there for a while. She doesn't care. The other dog, no, get in, get out. That's
not playing around. No.
Yeah, get out, get in, I suppose is the better way to say it. Yeah, she's more, my kids say she's kind of a deep, like she won't even, if it's raining really hard, even if she has to go super bad, like she will do all she can to look at you and say, I don't want to go out there. Why don't you find an alternative for me in here? To which I say, like, if you go right around this corner, it's covered and you'll be okay, even though it's outside. And then she like begrudgingly will do that. The big dog will go out in anything, man. If she has to go, she has to go.
Nothing's changing her.
Not really. Not for her. 803-404-6100. We get on the phones in just a second. Again, we've got some Carolina basketball to discuss. Obviously, a disappointing performance on Saturday in Norman. Should you begin to expect more of that? Yeah, probably. Florida comes in town tomorrow night. Speaking of tomorrow, we had told you on Friday that new athletics director Jeremiah Donati was going to be joining us on the program, but he had a scheduling conflict that popped up, and they will be, he will be with Elijah and me next Tuesday. So 1 week from right now, actually, next Tuesday, 4:00 in studio, Jeremiah Donati will be with Elijah and me. So we will not hold this against him. At this point, Elijah,
must be really important. If it's not, I'll be upset.
Yeah, and if you want to hold it against him, that's fine. And then I'll be, we don't play good cop, bad cop.
Yeah, I do like playing bad cop.
Okay, so
I like being the harsh interrogator.
Right. If you want to scream and holler next week, and I'll be like, hey, Jeremiah, that's just kind of how Elijah is, man. Like it. But if you don't get on his bad side, everything will be okay.
That's when you play the Denzel Washington and Training Day thing. Like, you want to go to jail, you want to go home.
Yeah.
And then we get what we want.
Cop.
Then we get what we want
everything.
from that. Yeah, exactly.
But like bad cop never works. And
you need a balance.
Good cop. Yeah. Like Liam Neeson in the Lego movie. Only he gets to play both, which was kind of fun. All right, let's jump on the phones. Rocky is up next. Rocky, is it snowing where you are right now, my man?
No, Jay, and a pleasure to talk to you and Elijah. And actually, I'm talking to Elijah. I'm calling about the playoff. I'll share some thoughts on that. But at 63 years old, having been born and raised in Columbia, South Carolina, I've only been in Greenville 5 years. You endure the sweltering heat of the summer and only hope that you might get a dusting of snow in the wintertime, and doing that all of your life, it's a toil.
Yeah.
And But you
It's
guys
kind
are
of
getting
crazy
it,
that the
and we're
farther
not.
south we are this week, you're going to get more snow. Like the upstate's not really getting any, and yet I think they said Orangeburg might get 3 or 4 inches
Woo.
south of us. So
That's a
one of those
snowmageddon.
weird, one of those weird snow fronts right now. But don't worry, Rocky, you'll get yours.
Well, no, we can't. I move up here to get snow. Good God, y'all gonna get it there. But anyway, that's that's the way it works down here. I was, as I was telling Elijah, on the, going in on the playoff, the 12 team, Jay, and I think as far as the teams that were in it, now we can debate all the seeding and all that. They got to tweak and all that, but as far as the 12 teams that were in there, and we can talk about Alabama and Ole Miss and South Carolina, oh, they should have been. I can tell you, all 3 of those teams would have lost to somebody. All right, they lost. And if you look at what Ohio State had to run, and you look at what Notre Dame had to beat Georgia and Penn State. Ohio State had to beat Tennessee, Oregon, and then Notre Dame. I think those 2 teams earned it to get there and to play. And I think the 2 best teams got there. We can look at March Madness in basketball, and you get down to the Sweet 16. That's going to be. This is not quite 16. I think the right teams were there. Now, maybe you, like I say, the seedings, and maybe you didn't want some of the, Ohio State and Tennessee playing in the first round. Fine. But I didn't have a problem with it. And just, it's football and it's playing. Sometimes you're just going to beat the snot out of somebody. You know?
I'm looking at my my very bad bracket right here that I filled out. I had Georgia beating Oregon for the national championship. The only team I got right in the Final Four was Texas. You're right. I look, I know Georgia was the 2 seed, but Georgia had its offensive flaws. And I don't know how we might want to look. And listen, Notre Dame
missing their quarterback
Rocky.
too, Jay.
Missing
their quarterback too. I mean, injuries are a lot more about football than basketball, and I don't hang up. But when you're trying to decide, but I was against Florida State being left out last year just because they lost their quarterback. Good God, they went undefeated. That I was against that. So I'm all about playing it off on the field, and they did it, and the best team won, Jay. Why complain? I mean, gosh.
And Ohio State beat. Somebody always will, Rocky. Somebody always will. Yes. Thank you, buddy. Appreciate you. Right, we'll talk soon, and hope you get some snow up there.
Unfortunately, no playoff system gets 100% approval rate across the board.
No, and that's fine. That's fine. Again, some people just like to have something to complain about, and that I get it. If Carson Beck doesn't get hurt, is Georgia in this game? Maybe. But even before that, Georgia was flawed at times. Here's what I think. I think these 2 teams, and I put this in our staff picks right up for Jack Veltri yesterday. These 2 teams, Elijah, were playing elite defense. And as much as anything else, I think that gets you. I am a big believer in defense wins championships. Yes, you must score points. I get it. But I think these 2 defenses were playing so well. You and I talked about it a lot. The Georgia Notre Dame game, that was such a defensive struggle. And if Georgia doesn't turn the ball over down low at the end of the second quarter, it could be a whole different ball game. And of course, to start the third quarter, Notre Dame returns a kick. I mean, right there, that was it for Notre Dame's scoring. That was their touchdowns.
They won the middle 8.
Yeah. That's the new buzz term of this year, right? Middle 8.
One of my favorite ones.
Heck, how many times have we talked about that for the Gamecocks the last couple of years? So now we have a term to slap onto it. No, I think the 2 best defenses of this tournament were in the game last night. Again, I could put Georgia's up there. I think Texas's was very, very good. But again, everybody has some level of flaw. Ohio State should have won this championship if you just want to base it on the rosters. And we've discussed that a bunch too. But I'm with Rocky. I'm not going to complain about this format. I like it. I want to see more schools have an opportunity, Elijah. I think leadership of NCAA schools has pointed to the amount of money they're spending to say we need an opportunity, if nothing else, even if the cream will typically always rise to the top. And that does happen in basketball. It does.
This past year, UConn and Purdue, number one, number two, and then women's basketball, Iowa and South Carolina, number one and number two. Like that will happen. And sometimes you do get your UConn versus San Diego State in men's basketball. Like that will happen sometimes, but that's part of
and the thing is, those teams
experience.
Don't win. San Diego State, that was a great story. FAU was in that Final Four. We've seen VCU. Butler with back-to-back runners-up. George Mason.
That was awesome.
I love that kind of stuff. And who's to say they couldn't have? I mean, Butler was a half-court heave away from beating Duke, right?
Yep. And they were a bad shooting day away from beating UConn the next year.
Yeah. But it's even hard, though, now, looking back to go, man, was that Butler team, like, really defying the odds? Sort of, because of their conference, but with the coach and the roster.
They had two NBA players.
How good they really actually were. I mean, it felt like an upset or like they didn't belong. But I think the more we historically, take a look back, you realize that they actually did quite a nice job of earning their way into it. For those who don't like this format, that's fine. I am here to tell you right now, it is not going to contract. It's either going to stay the same or expand. And I'll be very, very surprised if it stays the same beyond this season. I might even be surprised if it doesn't have any kind of tweak. Now, will it, this year coming up, Elijah, will they add to the number of schools that are participating? I don't think so. I don't think they'll open it up to more. They might. Maybe. They might, because it'll bring in more money. But I don't think they will this year. But I do think that they, if nothing else, I think the way they seed this tournament will be the one change. If I had to pick one thing that I think is going to change for the 25 season with the 12 school format, I think it'll be the way they seed the tournament. That'll be it.
That's the easiest change, right?
Yeah,
the logistics of the entire event are still set in stone. You're just changing the way you fill out the bracket. And I think that's probably for the best, really. I think that it really explains why we had more of the blowouts in the first round, not because the right teams did or did not get in, but because we had some of the best teams having to play in those first games. I mean, the two of the participants in last night's title game had to participate against the lower seeded teams at home in the first round of that tournament. I think it's one of the reasons why you got some of the results that you got, and you probably would have had better results if it were, say, Boise State and Arizona State playing in that first round, right? You probably could have had a little more drama. So I think that is the easiest change, and at least the change that presents the path of least resistance. I think that's probably where we're going, and probably where you should go right now too, because again, I don't know if there are 16 teams that are good enough to win the title every year. It's always fun to give them a shot, and that's why we love sports. But I think 12 is really a sweet spot.
Well, I just can't figure out, and I don't know. Again, it's just because, as Rocky kind of alluded to, sometimes people just complain about stuff, but and nobody wants to mess with the NCAA basketball tournament, and I'm one of them. I don't want to mess with it. Now, I've told you I still think they're gonna mess with it, but it doesn't mean I want them to. Well, yeah. But 60, all 64 of those schools can't win that tournament.
No, that's true.
There's some of them that, like, God bless you, glad you're there, but you're not going to win this thing, right? At least with 12, 14, 16 football teams, maybe they do all have a more legitimate opportunity. We'll get into the Final Four of the NFL. It is set, and one big-time assistant is getting ready to get paid to become the head guy. We'll do that for you when the postgame show returns. Homeowners, love where you've been. You and the family been there for a while, close to work, school, church, shopping, but you also are a little wary of the fact that the kitchen looks like it was designed in the 80s or 90s, or that bathroom that your guests use is kind of getting you ragged on, especially by, like, say, the in-laws. Time for you to take advantage of the equity in your home and work with Palmetto Citizens Federal Credit Union on a home equity line of credit. Unlock over a 10-year draw period the equity in your home. Get that kitchen fixed up now. That paid off a little bit, still have the equity line open. Next job is that bathroom. Or maybe it's time for a nice deck or a patio out back. Maybe you're ready to build a pool. Maybe it's time to get that room over the garage fixed up so the kids have a place to get out of your hair, because they don't want to be around you and you don't want to be around them sometimes. It's fun. It's good. It's what kids are all about. Call Palmetto Citizens and get that done. 14 very convenient Midlands locations. They're only working here in the Midlands. And you can always go online to apply and learn more at palmettocitizens.org. Join my wife and me as members. Check them out. Palmetto Citizens.
Postgame Show.
20 minutes after 4 o'clock here on a Tuesday afternoon. Welcome back into the Postgame Show. Jay Phillips, Elijah Campbell with you. Yours truly working from home today. Just, again, that's one less Southern driver on the road a little bit later on. I'm doing my part, Elijah Campbell. I'm doing my part.
In a way.
Yeah.
Every bit counts.
And am I going to be at work tomorrow?
Maybe. Right now it's, I would say flurrying. I think this would classify as a flurrying, but the road, at least I'm staring straight ahead at Gervais. Looks good. So as long
Wait, you
as
got the curtains open? You got the curtains open in the studio?
Yeah.
You didn't get hollered at?
No. I even told you that I did. I've been watching it snow for the last little bit. This is wonderful.
That's good.
This
It
is
is.
great.
It's nice. It's nice. Yeah, I get distracted. And it is starting to stick in my backyard.
Good.
I can now see that it's definitely, I wouldn't say it's accumulating, but it is sticking.
Would it resemble what we would call a dustin?
Yeah.
Okay.
That's fair.
Nice
Like my,
snow.
again, the patio furniture is, it's getting snowed on, right? And my car's over this way. Yeah. It's beginning to stick a little bit, so that's good. But in all seriousness, be careful on the road. Elijah will have traffic updates for you coming up in just a little bit. But if you don't need to be in it, don't. Just go run around outside and have fun with it. That's better anyway, right?
Enjoy the scenery from the comfort of your own home.
Yeah, build a fire, roast some marshmallows. Maybe have a beverage or two of your choice.
Yeah,
and enjoy. Because chances are most of you aren't going to work tomorrow, at least not on time.
No. More than unless you work from home, and then of course you have no excuse. Our remote workers out there will still be required.
We don't often do this when it's a college player, but we will do it when it's a professional player. And as much as you don't like to, and you and I are fortunate in our line of work that we have had the chance to do things with many players that have played in the National Football League. But Sunday, Mark Andrews, tight end of the Baltimore Ravens, might have had the worst day of his life, man. And I feel badly for him. I do. I guess I like Lamar. I wasn't pulling against Buffalo in that game, but I would say I was pulling for Baltimore. I do want to see Lamar get to a Super Bowl, and that's obviously going to take another year at least. I like Josh Allen. Again, I got nothing against the Bills, but Elijah, Andrews is pretty good, but two massive drops in that game, both at incredibly inopportune times. And in the middle of those two drops, a fumble at midfield that gave Buffalo the ball, and they went right down and scored and made the mountain that much taller for Baltimore to have to climb. And yet the Ravens nearly pulled it off. The Ravens did the right thing, in my opinion, by saying in postgame, hey, we're not blaming this on Mark. And again, you and I mentioned the word this morning. That's noble. And I appreciate that from Coach Harbaugh, from Lamar and the other guys on offense. But man, I'm not saying if he makes any one of those three plays, it's different. And certainly I think the drop 2-pointer is the biggest one of the three, but each of them, Elijah, came at points in the game that could have been pivotal. And when everything counts, when the margins are razor thin, I think it's fair to say Mark Andrews cost him the game, whether the Ravens themselves want to say it or not.
Yeah. Oh, definitely. Especially when the ball hits you in the hands on the 2-point conversion, where the play call was perfect. The execution and everything leading to what happened when the ball left Lamar Jackson's hand was perfect. It hits you right in the hands. You were a former all-pro tight end. You must catch that football. And he is paid handsomely, amongst other tight ends, to catch that football. And that's what's really brutal for him. And throughout his career, he has done a really good job of catching that football, right? And look, for the Ravens too, I understand the stance of, one player didn't cost us the game. It's a team game. And again, very noble on his teammates and his coaches to not throw him under the bus. Because, we could easily do the same thing to Lamar. Like, Lamar had an uncharacteristically bad half. I'll say bad half when it came to taking care of the football. He had he had a really bad fumble. He had that one interception where I don't know where the hell he was throwing that ball. There was a miscommunication between him and a receiver somewhere, but he threw that ball about 7 yards further than there was a receiver. And that Bills corner could have fair caught it, right? Like, it was that direct to him. So, and from a guy who threw only 4 interceptions all season long to have those 2 turnovers in the game of that magnitude does really suck for Lamar, for somebody who's got that tag of having his worst games whenever the season's on the line.
Yeah.
And I hate that for him, because I do truly believe Lamar Jackson's the best quarterback in the NFL. I think in terms of just elevating everybody around him, I think he does the most. Sometimes because he has to, sometimes because he's just that good, right? And like, I know Patrick Mahomes is that great. But at the same time, Mahomes isn't asked to do as much, right? He's got a defense that is the number one in the NFL, and they could go win 15 games in the regular season without being in the top 10 in scoring, right? So when you look at just what guys have done on the field and productivity this year, there wasn't a more productive quarterback in the NFL than Lamar Jackson. It happened again in that first half of this game where his brain, I guess, draws blank and throws the interception and then fumbles the ball at the worst possible moment. But at the same time, too, Mark Andrews that play is going to be the one people remember, because that one would have sent it to overtime pretty much, right?
Yeah.
I don't care how much time's left on the clock.
Yeah.
It wasn't like the Bills were doing much through the air. And at that point in time, you'd have to throw the ball to get into field goal range. And Tyler Bass wasn't exactly automatic this season through long distances.
The Bills weren't doing much on offense at all. And do I have time? Yeah, I do. So at the same time here, if you want to pull up the golf clap, Elijah, you can do that, because we can get into these things. But congratulations to 107.5 The Game's own Elijah Campbell for
give it up.
Yeah, winning this week's Wild Card Showdown. We played an extra game. Elijah went 4-2. So did RA. RA and Ken played with us in person over at Pro Swing the other day. RA went 4-2. Elijah went 4-2. I went 3-3. Ken went 2-4. But Elijah won the tiebreaker statistic, which was total offense for Josh Allen. Elijah chose 285 total offense yards to RA's 350. The total offense number for Josh Allen, you heard me right, kids, the total offense number for Josh Allen was 147. They were not good on offense, the Buffalo Bills. And again, one of those drives that the Bills went on was from midfield after that Mark Andrews fumble. The Ravens were the better football team, but you hit it on the head, Elijah. They cost themselves. And does that make you the worst football team? You didn't win the game. So sure, in that respect, but I wasn't, let's put it this way. Baltimore was the favorite on the road in a night game in the cold. And that's cold for everybody, but it should tell you something about what Vegas thought of this one. Buffalo wins the football game. That's all that matters. We get another Chiefs and Bills matchup for the right to go to the Super Bowl. But if even half of the mistakes, and there were several, if half of the mistakes that Baltimore makes, Elijah, aren't made, they probably win that game by 10 points.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, the interception was a killer. The fumble from Lamar was a killer. Mark Andrews, where that ball was when he fumbled it, was a killer, and what Buffalo did afterward. To Buffalo's credit, they did run the ball very well. James Cook had a phenomenal day on the ground, and that's a team that this year, given some of the attrition at the wide receiver position, when you trade Stephon Diggs, you're not going to get better in the wide receiver room. But I thought they did a very good job of playing situational football on Sunday, and that's what they're going to need to do against Kansas City, because there's not a team that's better at situational football than the Kansas City Chiefs. They're going to have to be able to do that exact same complimentary type deal whenever they make the trip to Arrowhead on Sunday.
Let's see. Yeah, listen, Buffalo's total, let me go back to this real quick here. Buffalo's total offense number, 273. Baltimore's 416.
Good Lord. That doesn't win you many games if you're a team of Buffalo's
Lamar had nearly as many pass yards as the Bills had total yards. I do think that's a big point in this one. More on the NFL playoffs when the postgame show returns.
Ah, yes. You heard Jay and I talk about it. There was so much exciting action revolving the NFL playoffs this past weekend. It's only going to get better because one of my favorite Sundays of the year, that is championship weekend, is coming up on Sunday. My friends over at Prize Picks are helping you out to win a little bit of money and cash in on your football knowledge that I know you have. And they're doing so with a free pick, an NFC title game free pick, Jaden Daniels projection discount. Look, it was going to be 225.5 passing yards, more or less, right? But now that projection's down to 0.5 passing yards, meaning he only has to complete a pass, and you got that square. PrizePicks does a lot of these promotional squares, and it's fantastic. So hop on this today, download the PrizePicks app, take advantage of this Jaden Daniels square, pick more or less on just another stat projection. You can win up to 100 times your cash. And also use promo code 1075game to get $50 instantly when you play your first $5 lineup. PrizePicks, run your game. From the WIS Traffic Studios, I'm Elijah Campbell. The few accidents to get to you, and by a few accidents, I mean just one. And that's going to be over at Highway 1 at Augusta Road at North Grampian Hills Road. That has created a minor traffic backup, so be able to avoid that if you can. And please be safe on the roadways as we still have a winter storm warning effect in this area.
Talking NFL playoffs as the final four, if you will, is set for the pros. Comes up on Sunday. Bills at Chiefs. That's the late game. Washington at Philadelphia. The Commanders, I suppose, Mr. Campbell, the surprise team of the weekend. By the way, welcome back in, Jay.
Absolutely. The surprise
I'm
team
at
of the
home.
weekend.
Elijah in the studio rocking a very cool Lakers hat. I like it.
Oh, yeah. I don't get to wear this toboggan often, so today was a good day to do it. Yeah. keep my old noggin warm.
Nice.
Not like there's much going up here anyway.
He's not there yet, but Jaden Daniels is very quickly rising to the top of the list when it comes to NFL quarterbacks. Got to go do it again, kid. And he's got one more. I mean, are you going to be surprised at now that we have the matchup? Let me ask it like that. All right. Because if I said to you or asked you, in September, hey, are you going to be surprised if Jaden Daniels and Washington go to the Super Bowl? You'd be like, yes, Jay, I'm going to be very surprised. But if I ask you today, Elijah Campbell, with the matchup of a team they've already seen twice, are you going to be surprised if Washington goes to the Super Bowl?
Absolutely, because you know what that would mean, Jay Phillips? That a rookie quarterback beat 3 straight division title winners on the road to get to a Super Bowl. That's remarkable. No, doesn't matter who the rookie quarterback is, and we've seen some awesome rookie seasons in the history of the NFL. I mean, C.J. Stroud last year had one of the better rookie seasons you've ever had. He didn't have to do that. Actually, he still has yet to win a road playoff game in his career. Andrew Luck had a remarkable rookie season. He didn't do that in his rookie season. Think about every single awesome rookie year you've ever encountered from an NFL quarterback, and not one of them will have a resume of going through 3 straight division title winners on the road in the playoffs en route to a Super Bowl. If someone has seen that, then let me know, hit us up, and I'll shout you out. But I can't think of any in my lifetime, at least, or in the history of this great league, where somebody has been able to pull off a feat like that in their first year as being a starting quarterback.
That hasn't happened. So let's see. They didn't play until late in the year. First game in Philly. Eagles won by 8, 26-18.
Very entertaining game. It was a very good football game on a Thursday night.
Yep. And then the return game a couple days before Christmas on the 22nd.
Another one of the best games of the year.
Washington won by 3. Let's see.
Or Jalen Hurts got hurt in the first, second drive, I believe it was, in that game. Had a concussion that had come out. We had a Kenny Pickett sighting.
And Philadelphia is a 6.5-point favorite going into the weekend. Philadelphia is the better team. Philadelphia looked really strong. I thought the way. Listen, I thought the Rams played well. There was just no answer whatsoever for Saquon. None.
No. We were talking about how surprised we were that Prize Picks had their projection for him at 113.5 rushing yards. And he almost got that in the first half.
Yeah,
he almost got it in the first half.
Hang on, let me go back and look at this. What was the final number for Saquon? Was it 200?
He broke he broke 2 bills in that game.
205.
205. He had like 96, I think, at halftime.
Yeah. 205. And 2 touchdowns. He was brilliant. I thought the Rams played really well, man. And I thought the Rams late, I was like, you know what? They're going to find a way to go down there and they're going to score, and all they got to do is kick a PAT and they're going to win the game. And it's going to break Philadelphia's heart. But I'm just with the way that Daniels and Washington play. Now, I don't know how much of it, and I want to be careful here. I don't know how much of it, Elijah, is due to Detroit just kind of coughing it up again. I mean, they had their opportunity last year. This one was at home. I also, to say careful, Washington did it in a dome. Does that make a difference relative to that awful weather in Philadelphia? I say awful. It depends on how you look at it.
Subjective.
I don't know. Yeah, exactly. I don't know that either. I just know that Jaden Daniels is hitting a level already that I don't know if it's like surprising to us, because this is a Heisman Trophy winner who played at a big time program in a big time conference. But to have the poise, you and I were talking about it this morning. I'm the kind of guy, as a sports fan that I am, when these things can be subjective, but I look at clutch not as raising a good level of play to another level in the biggest moments. as much as I look at it as if you're a great player, you maintain your greatness. Look at Mark Andrews. That was lack of clutch right there. Even Lamar to some degree, like, man, you can't regress when it matters most. But Jaden has been steadily climbing all season long, and he was just so good against Detroit. Was Detroit not prepared for how good he was until they saw him in person? I think these are all fair questions to ask, but the fact of the matter is they went into that dome and beat the crap out of the Detroit Lions.
And the Lions couldn't stop them. I
They
think
couldn't.
a lot of that was the Lions' injuries on defense finally catching up with them.
Maybe
I
so.
think they really missed having Aiden Hutchinson, which Zadarius Smith was a really good pickup, and I thought he filled in valiantly. It just wasn't good enough, right? Like, you needed an elite pass rusher to be able to make Jaden Daniels uncomfortable, and Zadarius Smith isn't that. They didn't have that on the field in that game, and then they had the pretty gruesome injury earlier in the game to another player. Like, that was unfortunate for Detroit, but also at the same time, Aaron Glenn's a great defensive coordinator, and he had nothing for Jaden Daniels that entire game. They moved the ball
350 total yards, man.
At
350.
will, they moved the ball. Like, that team is legitimately that good. And I think they kind of got lost in the shuffle because they play in a division with Philly, and they also play in a division with the Cowboys, and the Cowboys aren't any good. That's the discussion is, Dallas lost to Washington. What's wrong with Dallas? And no one cared to think what's right with the Washington Commanders. Same thing, like for a lot of their wins in the season, because they weren't projected to be very good. They had a rookie quarterback. We see what happens to even the best best quarterbacks in the league when they're in their rookie season. They do tend to struggle a lot. And Jaden Daniels just hasn't really had that, right? I mean, that's one of those things that makes it so impressive, is that he's been able to come in and not skip a beat. But like, you think about it, Jay, if I tell you that the two best rookie quarterbacks that had, really good seasons this year are two of the oldest rookie quarterbacks we've seen in the sport, like Bo Nix. I think you remember who I told you he had his, college football debut against, right? Justin Herbert.
Yeah. Right.
he played in a game again. He made his debut against Justin Herbert in college. Jaden Daniels threw touchdown passes to Brandon Ayuk at Arizona State. Like, these guys have played big time football for a while. And I think that actually probably did them a lot of good to play college football until they were like 24, 25 years old. They get to, they get to this point and they're incredibly mature and a lot more polished. I think you've seen.
Would you say it was the D word, Elijah? Development?
Yeah.
That was a big part of that?
Because Jaden Daniels wasn't doing this at Arizona State. It's amazing what happened when you see what Jaden Daniels' like scouting report would be when he was at Arizona State and what it turned into when he left LSU. No one was saying he was an ace deep ball thrower, at Arizona State, or an accurate intermediate thrower. He became a significantly more accurate thrower once he went to LSU and had to play against SEC defenses for a few years. And Bo Nix, at Auburn, kind of like wore out his welcome. They kind of ran him out of town. He goes to Oregon, and Dan Lanning and that coaching staff, Will Stein, did a fantastic job of developing him in that intermediate range. And they found out what he's really good at, and he was able to put up numbers to show that he was really comfortable in a certain system. And then Sean Payton gets his filthy mitts on him, and then he becomes one of the better quarterbacks in the AFC in terms of production. Like, it's amazing what can happen when these guys get to cook in the oven a little bit longer.
I feel like maybe you have a tinge of sarcasm when you say you will be surprised if Jaden makes the Super Bowl. And I get it, because to your point, that they do what they have to do to get there, it's going to be a big deal. But I tell again, 350 yards of total offense on the road against the best team in the NFC for Jaden Daniels. And he looked unflappable when he was doing it. Yeah. I mean, I am so impressed with how this kid is leading. And Washington fans just must feel an amazing breath of fresh air. Bad owner gone, great quarterback for the first time in a while. Good stuff. Come back on the other side. The ACC wants to change its title game in football. Good idea? Not so fast, my friend. This is the Postgame Show. Welcome back in. Post-game show rolling on this Tuesday. Jay Phillips, Elijah Campbell with you. Elijah is downtown in the Herndon Chevy Studios. Yours truly working from home just to be on the safe side. I got to say, Elijah, I'm kind of bummed, man.
It
Kinda
lost
bummed.
steam.
Yeah.
It lost
It's
steam.
basically not even snowing anymore. I see there's an occasional stray flake now, and I can't even tell. That could be just falling out of a tree.
It could have been, yeah, because I don't see a single flake falling right now.
Yeah.
But you know what? Don't cry because it's over. Smile because it happened.
Yeah, that's true. But that's just Columbia for you, man. I have long been as a lifer, under the impression that there is indeed some form of weather bubble around our fair city. Traps heat in the summer. Well, really just traps heat.
I was getting ready to say, I don't know if that's exclusive to the summer, unfortunately.
It just traps heat. I've told the story before. My buddies and I went to see Carolina play Davidson in basketball when we were in college, and stayed with some friends who went to Davidson, and woke up that morning and snow all over their campus, which was beautiful, lovely.
Oh, I can imagine. Pretty campus
but we had to get back to Columbia, and so we're making our way slowly down I-77, going about 40.
Look at you being safe, precautious.
Yeah, well, you don't want to. Anyway. And any of you that have driven 77 coming back south, when you get to like northern Fairfield County, it begins to roll, and there are a few spots where you can hit up, towards the top of a hill or a rise and kind of look out below you. And I remember hitting one of them, and still about 5, 6, 7 miles away, you could just see where the line was. It's like basically, oh, there's Richland County, there's Columbia, no more snow.
And not a flake to be found.
No, man, just crappy rain and like 36 degrees. It was terrible. Speaking of Charlotte and terrible, ACC Commissioner Jim Phillips, no relation, I assure you on this one,
2 L's.
says that he and his athletics directors will take a hard look at making changes to the ACC football championship game format. He says that this is because of how the 12-team playoff was filled. He said this year, of course, SMU was the regular season champion. Clemson was the 2 seed, but Clemson beat the Mustangs in Charlotte. He says there's a couple of things they could think about. One, that the ACC could consider giving its regular season champion a bye, and then have the teams that finished second and third in the league play in the title game. Well, how's that work?
How is
Elijah?
That a title game? That's not a title game at that point.
You're hey, congratulations, you won the runner-up bowl. That doesn't make sense. That's one, all right? And I'll just kind of let that one sit there. But here's another one, and I want you to think about this. He said the other possibility is potentially having the top 4 teams in the ACC standings play each other on the final weekend of the regular season, and then the winners would play in the title game, and it'd be 1 versus 4 and 2 versus 3. Elijah Campbell, do me a favor, just for a second, hear me out. Imagine, if you will, that in whatever example season we're talking about in the Atlantic Coast Conference, that teams 1, 2, 3, and 4, in whatever order, are Clemson, Louisville, Florida State, and Georgia Tech. What do they have in common on the last day of the regular season, Elijah Campbell?
They all play SEC teams.
Can you imagine having to have those schools go, hey, in-state rival, yeah, we can't play.
Can't do it.
Sorry. Why? Why can't you play? Well, we're in this weird new conference championship game tournament. Wait, what? Yeah. Jim wants us to do this, so we can't play you. We have to go play each other.
Even if we've already played this season.
Yeah. But hey, we called the community college JV team, and they'll be there at noon. So it'll be like you still have a game, and they're going to borrow some of our uniforms, so it'll look like us. Like, what are we doing here? You can't. I mean, that
It's that I don't know
You
which
can't-
idea is worse.
well, yeah, I mean, you can't. The second one is worse in the sense that you shouldn't even say that publicly. Yeah, like, no, bro, you can't do that. Now, it may not be those four, but what if it were? And would it surprise
There's a
anyone?
chance it could be.
Yeah, I mean, those are four good football programs. You can't know. So ACC fans, I feel for you. Here's the thing, Jim. Team one plays team two in the title game. And if you got tiebreakers, figure it out, man. That's how it works. One will play two. Hour 3, headlines. More on Carolina hoops coming up.
From the WIS Traffic Studios, I'm Elijah Campbell. The few accidents to get to you, and by a few, I mean just one. We have one accident on Highway 1 at Augusta Road at North Grampian Hills Road. That is causing some minor traffic backup, so avoid that area if possible. And, of course, we're still under a winter storm warning, so be careful out on the roads, and let's keep this number of accidents to a minimum. Keep up the good work. Be safe on those roadways.
It is 5 o'clock news time here on a Tuesday afternoon. Welcome back into the Postgame Show. Jay and Elijah with you. Yours truly working from home. Elijah downtown in the Herndon Chevy Studios. Just being cautious, as I've said many times throughout the day. Maybe a little tongue-in-cheek, but only a little. It's just one less Southern driver on snowy roads in South Carolina, right? And the snow is picking back up here where I live, not too far from the downtown Herndon Chevy Studios. But Elijah is in his Lakers toque, and he's looking good, and he's very warm. That's right.
It's very warm in the studio. My goodness.
Yeah. Although, I don't know, does it ever snow in L.A.? You think anybody's ever worn one of those in Los Angeles because it was cold?
Well, Albert Hammond once said it never rains in California, so I highly doubt it ever snows. So really, the only time
not in Southern California. It snows a lot in Northern
California.
Yes, they get a lot of snow.
Southern California, but
not so much.
Yeah.
Not so much.
Where the Lakers play, not so much. Yeah.
Yeah. But it is snowing in downtown Columbia, and as Elijah just said, in the traffic there, please be careful. More updates throughout the course of the final hour. We've talked a lot about the College Football Playoff National Championship, and we will get back into that for you in just a little bit. But it's time to turn our attention locally and the good and the bad of playing Oklahoma in basketball this weekend. South Carolina's men traveled to Norman on Saturday, and it was for a while an okay performance. And then Elijah Campbell, it simply wasn't. I think that's the best way to look at it. As I put in my notes, this team just absolutely faded down the stretch and ended up losing by 20. If that's all you saw, maybe you were busy on Saturday, or maybe you've already kind of lost interest in the ball club this year. You can be forgiven for that, and I get it. But it was a tight game until about the under 8, Elijah, give or take.
Mm-hmm.
And then all of a sudden it just wasn't. South Carolina just went on a scoring drought. They looked gassed. You can tell the bench is really problematic. Oklahoma's not very good. I'm not going to lie. There's a reason both of these teams went into the ball game winless. But for South Carolina, just kind of a gut punch and a real stark reality check about who and where you are, Mr. Campbell.
Yeah, and this one, this is one of those two that you hate to see, like the broken up line score, to see where, you did a good job. You held Oklahoma under 20 points in the first 10 minutes. You held them to 16 in, the last 10 minutes of the first half. Then you gave up 20 in the first 10 minutes of the third quarter of the second half. And then you gave up 28 points in the last 10 minutes of the game. That last 10 minutes, you were outscored 28-13 against a team that is not that much better than you from a roster standpoint, right? I know we can poke holes in this Carolina roster, but really Oklahoma is Jeremiah Fears and supporting cast, right? A true freshman, then a couple of solid players. Like Jalen Moore's a really solid player. Bryson Goodine on a good day will hit a lot of threes, but that's not a team that is built to just overwhelm you with talent. And in the last 10 minutes, you just crumbled. And there's still so many issues with this team as it pertains to scoring the ball. You've now slipped to 129th in the country in adjusted offensive efficiency. That's not anywhere near acceptable. You are, and then now you're dead last in the entire conference in offensive efficiency by a pretty large margin, right? Like Arkansas sitting at an offensive rating about 94.2. You're at 89.9. So you're almost, 5 whole points worse per 100 possessions than the other worst team on offense in the conference. Any metric that you look at, it's not very good right now. And this is I think that not just this team, but the program is going to have a come to Jesus moment, because it's now the second time in 3 years where you have been, buying real estate in the cellar of the conference.
Yeah. Defense, again, just seemed to disappear, as Elijah mentioned, getting outscored the way they did in the final 10 minutes here. For the game, South Carolina allowed Oklahoma to shoot 56% from the floor. That's not going to get it done, and better than 47% from three. Here's Lamont Paris post-game on his team's defense. Colin Murray Boyles did foul out. He had 11 points. Morris Ugasuk led the way for South Carolina with 15. He played well. I thought that was Morris's maybe. I don't know. You tell me, Elijah. I think pound for pound. I like to use that term a lot. Maybe best game of the season.
I agree with that.
But certainly not nearly enough. The Gamecocks had 3 double-digit scorers. Again, Morris with 15, Colin with 11, Jacoby Wright added 10. And off the bench, just the production there. Again, let me make sure I got this number right. I think 14 total points off the bench. 14 points.
Almost half of it came from Arden.
Yeah, and he had 6. He had 6 of those 14. So your depth is just not there. You don't like to slam on these kids too much. Yes, you're down 2 starters. Yes, it is making a big difference with how this team may play down the stretch. And I thought Lamont was kind when he said there were a lot of factors that went into it, or even maybe Elijah, why he was playing some zone is because his guys were gassed. Yeah. And let's be honest, playing zone, it still takes a requirement of dialing in on defense, but it is not nearly as physically taxing as trying to play man-to-man. And very few coaches would prefer to play zone defense. Jim Boeheim, I'm looking in your direction and know you would, sir. But not many do. If you can play man, if you got the bodies, you'd rather do it. And South Carolina just can't, but it showed. Because, again, what was a tight game, and I thought a pretty well-contested game, turned into a 20-point blowout.
Yeah, and that's the embarrassing part, right? Is that you were very much so in this game. I don't want to say you were ever really in control. It was kind of, you were played from behind for most of the game, but it wasn't like you got down 15, right? And you're trying to play catch up. I mean, it was a really hotly contested game. Neither team made a massive run to get away from one another. And you did all that without your best player taking a ton of shots. And so that's like, one bright side, but at the same side of that coin, Colin Murray Boyles needs to take more than 4 field goal attempts in a game.
Yeah. Oh my God.
4. He attempted 4 shots in that game. And at some point,
it's another game.
There's got to be a change, man, where you got to get this guy in a position to score the ball. I mean, he's not going to do you much good 30 feet away from the basket in making, passes to guards and not really getting a lot of actions to get him downhill. He's at his best when he's going downhill and attracting a bunch of different defenders. And he's just not getting put in that position. And that's something they desperately need to figure out, because you're not going to win any game in which he only attempts 4 shots.
And I'm trying to figure out where the line is between what you just said and Carolina staff has to figure out how to get him more involved, and how much of this is, as we've talked about a couple of times, opponents just going, hey, listen, just keep him in check. Nobody else is going to do anything. And until somebody else does, then we'll worry about it. And, like, again, Morris had a good game. And I think he's coming around. I as I've said many times, I know I'm talking a lot about Morris Ugasuk of late, but I like him, and I think they like him. And he is showing us why he was a heralded recruit from a foreign country, why last year when they really didn't want to, and some of it was by necessity when Colin was hurt, gave Morris meaningful first half minutes, why now he is a guy that they can depend upon to do some things. And I think even if everybody comes back, and I don't know that they, eventually Jamari's going to, and we'll see about Studi, I think you keep Morris in the starting lineup and you let him play 30 minutes a night, because I think he's showing you that he can.
Yeah,
but
he
right
gives you a lot of offense.
Yeah, but the depth is not there, and I fear for this team in an incredibly physical league, where even if you're not the best basketball team, a lot of times you can just wear people out. And I think that's what Oklahoma did the other night. They're not a very good basketball team, but they wore South Carolina out.
And they're just deep enough. And look, that's what makes this upcoming game against Florida daunting, to probably put it nicely, because this Florida team is not only one of the tallest teams in college basketball, they have just some insane height, but they have a really good bench. Like, they bring in guys like Denzel Aberdeen, who are like big guards who will guard the hell out of you and play great defense. Thomas Howell comes off the bench as a forward and is freakishly athletic. They have guys that are massive, athletic, really good shot blockers. And I think one thing that's continuing to plague this team as well, the more we get into the season, is how many shots they get blocked. Again, you had enough shots get blocked on Saturday to now move into the bottom 10 in the country in block percentage on offense. The bottom 10.
Yeah.
when most of the shots aren't getting to the rim, your field goal percentage is never going to be really good. You got to start drawing fouls or find ways to get cleaner looks because it's just not happening. And it's not getting any easier because this league is probably the best league in the history of college basketball for this year.
Yeah. Gamecocks at home twice this week, tomorrow night against those aforementioned Florida Gators, and Saturday against Mississippi State. And later on, because I know a lot of you still want to go, and there'll be a football presentation at halftime this Saturday. We'll give you a chance to win some tickets to go see the Gamecocks and the Bulldogs. Meanwhile, Dawn Staley's team yesterday hosted what was, at least on paper, a good Oklahoma team. They were 13th in the country. South Carolina, number 2. Number 1 in the net ranking are the Gamecocks. No issues at all for Dawn Staley's team. 101-60 was the final score in this one. And quite honestly, y'all, I watched a decent amount of it. It might not have been that close. Here's Dawn Staley on just taking some satisfaction and watching just how well her team's performing. South Carolina back at it Thursday night here in Columbia. LSU, number 5 in the country, coming in. The Tigers, undefeated on the season. College game day will be part of the festivities at CLA. That one tips off at 8 o'clock on Thursday night. All right, that's the Integrated Media headlines of the day, brought to you by Integrated Media. 803-948-8327 for all your home theater, home and security needs, and so much more. Call our good friends at Integrated Media. I promise you'll love working with them. We'll come back on the other side, more on Ohio State's national championship. And again, the fallout, the good kind, affecting the Gamecocks looking ahead to 2025. The final ranking, the projected ranking, and some Norris. You're listening to the Postgame Show. Time to save money with your banking. You heard me right. Save money with your banking. Choose Palmetto Citizens Federal Credit Union. As a not-for-profit institution, they return earnings to members in the forms of lower rates and fewer fees. That means your checking account, your savings account will see more money in it at the end of the month because, cost you less to do business with them. And in terms of lower rates, hey, when you're borrowing, whether it's credit cards, car loans, student loans, home loans, again, Palmetto Citizens can help you out. They don't loan out of the state or out of the country. Everything they do is right here and local. And it's been that way since the 1930s. So they'll get to know you. They'll know your neighborhood, your family, everything about what's going on in the Midlands, because that's who they are. So no matter what it is when it comes to banking needs, do it with Palmetto Citizens. Check them out online, palmettocitizens.org, or stop in to visit any of their 14 convenient Midlands locations. My wife and I are members. We love them. You will too. Palmetto Citizens. Check them out. 19 minutes after 5 o'clock on this Tuesday afternoon. Welcome back in. It's the Postgame Show. Jay and Elijah with you. Appreciate you being with us. Again, a little bit later on, we'll give you a chance to win some tickets to this weekend's Carolina-Mississippi State men's basketball game. Not a great performance on Saturday, and you hope for something different tomorrow night against Florida. A blackout is requested for Carolina fans tomorrow night. So if that suits your fancy, and if not, we'll have it for you across the Gamecock Radio Network. Meanwhile, last night in Atlanta, Ohio State, the best roster in the country.
Most expensive.
Now, most expensive, yes. Ross Bjork, I think that's their athletics director, by the way. I think through the course of the year, Elijah Campbell, he was bragging.
Oh,
right?
yeah.
on the $20 million payroll. And now a lot of people are going to be doing that, which means Ohio State goes to 30 million, 40 million. I don't know.
In a revenue share era?
Yeah. I mean, if everybody's going to be sharing the $20.5 million starting next school year, as long as everything goes according to plan with the House settlement, then what else? I mean, and if Ohio State had $20 million to spend this year through its collective, I mean, now that's not going to be $20 million to spend on football through the school, but I think it's going to be like 12 for football. So if I do 20 plus 12, Elijah, that's $32 million minimum that I bet you Ohio State's going to spend on its football program. They already had and typically do have, if not then one of the 3-4 best rosters, most talented rosters in college football. And that's been the case since, I don't know, the 60s.
How many times did they put in like 3 NFL first rounders?
Yeah.
Every year in the draft.
That's fine. That's who they are. It's Ohio State. I mean, nobody's sitting there going, gosh, can you believe Ohio State won the National College Football Championship? I didn't see that one coming. I mean,
well, from some people online last night, that was the reaction. It's like, where you been the last 25, 35 years,
forever, where you been your whole life. Because I mean, even for people older than me, again, Ohio State has always been amongst the nation's elite, and that's not going to change anytime soon. If ever, I mean, it would take something just catastrophic for that to happen. But I thought the best team ended up getting it done last night. I love both of these teams' defenses. Notre Dame showed me more offensively last night, especially with their comeback opportunity, than I would have given them credit for. I know on Friday I picked. I said, give me those points. Let me see what happens. And for a little bit, it was there. Your reasoning, and we talked about it a lot with how Ari Wasserman talked about it with he and Andy on their show every day. Ari was a lot more like you. Again, hey man, I'll take him at minus 14. The Buckeyes, I mean,
right?
I just think they're that much better, and on paper they certainly are. I give Notre Dame a lot of credit for giving as much of a fight as they possibly could last night, but there's no real doubt in my mind that the team that should have won this tournament won this tournament.
Yeah, certainly. I mean, at the beginning of the year too, I remember having a conversation with you. I think it was at Old Mill Brew Pub specifically, where at this point we were still like 2 months away from SEC Media Days, right? Like this is still very early on in the off season. And we were talking about like the best rosters. And I remember saying like Ohio State's got the best roster. If you just look at top to bottom, quarterback position, running back position, wide receivers, offensive line, defensive line, and go up and down, you're like, wow, there is an incredible accumulation of talent here. And most of the time, more often than not, that accumulation of talent wins. That's why every single national title team over, in the BCS era, at least, is the one that's producing a lot of those first rounders in the NFL draft. I mean, very rarely will that not be the case, right? And that's why it's not very surprising. I think why it's so surprising to some is because this is a 2-loss national champion, which is also not unprecedented. We even had that in the BCS era where we had a 2-loss national champion. It's stranger to see, but I mean, this is going to be part of the norm now where you're going to have some margin for error.
Why does that? I mean, I guess I kind of know because I'm a college football lifer myself, and I understand it. One of the things that I've been saying, even since before you and I started working together, because we've known this format was coming for 4 years. I think they decided on this like in 21, 22, somewhere back there. It's been a while. that we knew that this was coming our way. And I said back then, listen, you're going to go ahead and need to get ready for a 2 or 3 loss national champion to become maybe the norm, especially when I think we were all hoping, at least I was, Elijah, I can't say we, hoping that this would mean a beefing up of college football schedules at the highest level. No more FCS teams. You know, if you want to play somebody from the MAC or Sun Belt or something, cool. But maybe let's have that to be the lowest level that you're willing to dip. Otherwise, let's play games. Let's make this. And I don't have a problem with it being NFL like, because some of the people out there are saying things like, well, they're just turning it into NFL light. Well, okay. Would you rather see a bunch of teams playing FCS teams? I mean, you can't have it both ways. So either you want to beef it up so that things are a lot more even on the field every week, or they're not. But there is, I don't know that there is a middle ground unless you want to add more conference games, which again, I'm all for it. You want to play 10 conference games for everybody? Do it, man. Do it. I'm here for it. I got no problem with it whatsoever. It's still going to mean you need to get used to a 2 or 3 loss champion. And I know you were just reading me a tweet from somebody who said something about how when Ohio State lost to Michigan, that should have been it, and they shouldn't have any other path because the path is the regular season. If that's your opinion, that's your opinion, but this might take people back. You know, I mean, should baseball have playoffs when you play 162 games, or should we go back to the old ways pre-1969? You win the league, you play in the World Series because you played 162 games. I mean, the NFL, we just want to have division winners. Do we not even want to have divisions anymore? 2 best records, you're in the Super Bowl.
Yeah.
I mean, playoffs are part of the American sports experience.
Mm-hmm.
College football has been the lone holdout for far too long, man. And now we have it. And I don't think it's that people don't like playoffs. I just think that there's a faction of people in this country that don't want to wrap their minds around something new and different because they want to go back to what it was. To which I say, where exactly do you want to draw that line? Do you want to keep voting for a champion? Do you want to have one play 2 and have all that controversy? Oh, computers don't know. Then we get a committee. Oh, the people are biased. What do you want here, man? I mean, I can't,
never be satisfied. There's never going to be a satisfied group because it's always something. It's always going to be something. Like, and for some reason, college football is like the most like that, where I feel like the people who sometimes claim to love it will dump on it for advancing, right? Like advancing into the modern era.
Yeah.
Would anybody be upset if a 14-2 NFL regular season team won the Super Bowl? No, we'd call them one of the best teams ever, right?
Right.
And I'm not saying you have to say this Ohio State team is one of the best teams ever, but I'm saying they're a rightful champion because they had the best roster, and there should be no total shock that they were able to run the table when the season got to its most important juncture.
They beat 5 top 5 teams, Elijah. They beat 5 top 5 teams. No one's ever done that.
Yes, and that's remarkable. And in the NFL, like the 2007 Giants are heralded as being an incredible story. People love that. That was a 9-7 football team that won a Super Bowl, right? If that happened in college football, people would claim it as an unrightful champion. I mean, at some point, this is just what sports are. You get a playoff, you see what happens. And I will never understand that. And I've seen some people complain about, Ryan Fowler, love him to death. And I think he's really good at what he does over in Alabama, works for the flagship station, was talking about how, Ohio State bought the national championship. I'm like, buddy, Alabama's done that too. The national championship always gets bought in terms of roster, right? This is not anything that we haven't seen or is unprecedented.
And you're only fooling yourself when you say otherwise, right? You're only fooling yourself.
There's some cognitive dissonance that occurs.
I've seen Big Ten people saying that, right? On Twitter of late. It's like, well, now that everybody can pay their players. I'm like, you really want to think that Michigan and Ohio State and Penn State and Illinois and whoever the hell else hadn't been paying players before they could pay players? Come on, man. Come on. You're only lying to yourself.
Yes.
When you say things.
And you're robbing yourself the joy of a football season. I'm not saying you have to be happy Ohio State won, but you're robbing yourself the viewing experience of just watching how a college football season unfolds, right? I think a lot of people would rather be complaining and mope around about the result of what we got instead of enjoying what ended up being a really good television product.
Yeah, that was a good game last night, man. That was a good game. It was a different ebb and flow in terms of, instead of blow for blow, I mean, again, the Notre Dame drive, they had the ball the whole first half. Um, not really, but close.
It felt like it. It felt like they weren't giving that ball up.
But they had that long drive, and then Ohio State just pulled away, and you think, oh man, this isn't just going to be like ugly. This is going to be like bad, ugly. And then it wasn't, because Notre Dame found a way, and Notre Dame hitting two pointers was a big deal. That second one, that little trick play thing they did, was really cool. They had their opportunities. Ohio State was a better football team in the grand scheme. That's it. Ohio State was the better football team. We'll come back around. Part of the drive around the SEC, we'll look at the final poll. Good news for the Gamecocks in the final AP poll, and start to look ahead a little bit to how the SEC could shake out in the 2025 season. Get a few hoops things for you, too. 803-404-6100 is the postgame show. Any live read here?
It's one of the best Sundays of the sports season. It's Conference Championship Sunday. And I know you're going to enjoy watching the games, as you always do, because we only have a few professional football games left. But that viewing experience can be enhanced with my friends over at Prize Picks. Like, they give you free squares in the month of December, and they're doing so now with Jaden Daniels, 0.5 passing yards. Look, the game of Prize Picks is easy. You pick more or less on at least two players. You can possibly win up to 100 times your cash. But Prize Picks is going to help you enjoy this Conference Championship Sunday a whole lot more with a free square for Jaden Daniels. All he's got to do is have one receiving yard. I like his chances of doing that. Just download the app today. Use promo code 1075game, and then you will get $50 when you play your first $5 lineup and that Jaden Daniels square. Why not do it? Why wait? Do it now. Download Prize Picks today. Prize Picks. Run your game. From the WIS Traffic Studios, I'm Elijah Campbell. A few accidents to get to you that are causing some issues on the roadways this afternoon. Starting with a disabled vehicle, it's causing some traffic backup on Highway 1 at Augusta Road near I-20. We also have another disabled vehicle causing a traffic backup on Shop Road over at South Beltline Boulevard. An accident has traffic backed up on Spear Creek Church Road at US 1 and 2 Notch Road. And lastly, we have an accident at US 378 near Atlas Road.
It is Drive Around the SEC time on this Tuesday afternoon. Welcome back in. Jay and Elijah with you. Again, yours truly working from home. Elijah is downtown in the Herndon Chevy Studios. Be safe on the roads, especially as it gets darker now. Roads get a little slick, depending on where you are, how much snowfall and or other stuff you might have had. Be aware out there. That's why I'm home. Again, I've been saying all day. That's one less Southern driver on the roads during any type of snow event. Elijah Campbell, doing my part, man.
That's right. Look at you. Yeah. Playing the numbers game.
Hey, you know, and I think my dogs have been here like, who's he talking to? I'm looking over here.
They're starting to get really concerned. They have no idea.
Well, my lab
he's got on his head.
My lab made an appearance earlier on the YouTube channel. She's kind of half looking at me now, but if I try to get her over here now, she'd be like, dude, I'm trying to sleep. You're doing it wrong.
But you're a nuisance.
That's right. Yeah, it was fun for a minute. It's like, oh, good. He's home when he usually leaves, and now they're like, all right, can you just stop? Auburn beat Georgia in Athens, 70-68 on Saturday.
Escaped.
Yeah, they did, didn't they? Yeah. Here's the thing. Georgia's good, Elijah. Coach White has them playing his brand of basketball. I know it didn't end the way he would like it to have ended in Gainesville, but it did. But I like what he's doing. I don't know where it takes him, but if they had Anthony Edwards on that team, that'd be great, right?
He probably does maybe a little more on that team, with Anthony Edwards on his team than Tom Crean did, because that team still was really bad.
Bama goes to Kentucky and wins a thriller. Everything we expected in this game. The only thing that didn't happen is that I thought both teams would score more than 100 points. 102-97 was the final. But
a lot of threes.
Bama after a rough midweek goes to Rupp and answers the doubters. Florida all over the Texas Longhorns in Gainesville. Again, the Gators will be here tomorrow night, 84-60. Texas, I don't know. I don't know.
Yeah, that was a disappointing effort from them.
A&M over LSU, 68-57. Mississippi State edges Ole Miss in Starkville, 84-81. Mizzou all over Arkansas. They, like the Gamecocks, now the only two winless teams in conference play. But the result of the weekend, Elijah Campbell, happened in your old stomping grounds of Nashville, Tennessee, as the Vanderbilt Commodores survive a late push and held off the Tennessee Volunteers 76-75. This is about Vandy, or this is about Tennessee, or it's somewhere in the middle. How'd this happen?
I think it's more about Vandy, man. That building's got some magic back to it. Like, they used to call that place Memorial Magic all the time, because it's such a funky gym, because it's so old, right? I mean, like, on the what you'd consider the end zone side of the arena, half of those are still wooden bleachers. Actually, half the arena is still like wooden bleachers, and the floor is like elevated, and the benches are behind the backboards or on the baseline, not on the sideline. And if you saw Derek Scott's picture that he put on Twitter before the game started when Carolina was there last week, like the broadcaster's perch is like below the floor. Like your
Right.
eyes are level to the
like
floor.
feet level.
Like where we're seeing people's sneakers, right? And you're looking up to see if that shot was a 3 or not. I've covered many a game there where I was down there with them. And it's a very fascinating gym. It's one of my favorite places in America to watch a game, but they haven't had that home court advantage in a while. It's because they haven't been very good over the ever since Kevin Stallings left, right? They fired Kevin Stallings, and you had a good year under Bryce Drew, and then you had the 0-18 season, which I had the pleasure of covering every single game in that building that year. And that was not a very good team. And then they've been trying to find an identity for the last like 5 or 6 years. Haven't really had anything. And then you saw the atmosphere in that game where Vanderbilt had a legitimate home court advantage, and that place is actually excited about Vanderbilt basketball right now. Mark Byington's done a fantastic job of putting together a team from scratch and getting them to play really competitive basketball in the SEC. I think that was more of Vanderbilt finding a really good way to score well over a point per possession against one of the best defenses in college basketball. And, of course, the story of Chaz Lanier missing the free throw, one of the best shooters in the country, missing a free throw at the end of the game. And, that might have been a little bit of Memorial Magic sprinkled in there. But the fact that we had a Memorial Magic moment is pretty cool, considering we have not seen anything like that in that gym in a while.
That's one of the balls that has those little Crisco jets on it. And you don't know. Right at the end, he's like, oh, ball slipped. Yeah, I don't know what happened right there. Anyway, so a nice win for Vanderbilt. And again, South Carolina has Florida tomorrow night, who took it to the Texas Longhorns. Carolina, as we talked about at the top of the hour, just faded late against a not very good Oklahoma team. All right. I want to get back into some things around Carolina football as we continue with drive around the SEC. First off, the final AP poll was released after the championship game last night. From an SEC perspective, Texas number 4, Georgia number 6, Tennessee number 9, Mississippi number 11, Alabama number 17, South Carolina number 19, Missouri number 22. So Shane Beamer's team, Elijah, 5.5 over under win total at the beginning of the season, finishes in the top 20. That's progress.
That's awesome.
Now you gotta do it again, right?
Yep. And in this era of college football where you have to revamp your roster, sometimes year in, year out, you lose a lot from a defense that was a top 15 unit in the entire sport by any metric you look at, right? Most metrics had this defense in the top 15 or top 10 even. Like, this was a fantastic defense, one that carried you through the first half of the year and supplemented you through the last, right? Helped get you past the finish line in some really big games. So that's the big thing is, did you do enough to fulfill the losses that you have on defense, and then pair that with that momentum that you got from Lenora Sellers at the end of the year and a lot of the weapons that you're able to pick up in the transfer portal and be able to make it to where you don't skip a beat. That's the challenge. Not saying it's impossible, that it can't be done, or that it's not likely. I think there's a good chance that you do end up in the top 20 next year too. How do you push this bad boy forward? That's going to be the fun thing to talk about and look for whenever we get closer to next season.
Well, in 2 way too early top 25s that are always part of the narrative immediately after a championship game in pretty much any sport, because that's just the way today's modern media works. Mark Schlabach, ESPN, has South Carolina number 10 in the country today. Going into next season, lots of changes coming. Stuart Mandel of The Athletic has South Carolina number 16 in his poll. Clemson just ahead of Carolina in both of those, by the way, for what it's worth, with Georgia pretty much looked at as the best team coming back into the Southeastern Conference. Texas not too far behind with Arch Manning at the helm. South Carolina's odds at ESPN Bet to win the national championship are plus 4,000. Right? That's not awful. I think Clemson was plus 2,500, and I think Ohio State was like, what, plus 650, Elijah? Does that sound right? I don't have it in front of me right this second. So if it gives you an idea. And Lenora Sellers, I believe, was like 7th or 8th on the list today at plus 2,000 to win the Heisman Trophy. So maybe
Yeah, I mean, he will be talked about as one of those legitimate contenders of this thing once we start getting into serious talking season.
It's
No
pretty
doubt.
cool. Carolina or Clemson fans that hate each other, and I get it. But it's pretty cool that Cade Klubnik and Lenora Sellers are going to be amongst the Heisman candidates and front runners. That's a nice conversation to be having through the course of the year that will lead up to when they meet each other at Williams-Brice in November. So something to think about here. And it's always football season. That's the drive around the SEC. More of the postgame show coming at you. 11 minutes in front of 6 o'clock on this Tuesday evening. Welcome back in. Final few minutes of the postgame show. All right, callers, before I get to Keith, sit tight. Coming to you in just a second. But callers 4 and 5, 803-404-6100. Family 4-pack of tickets to Carolina, Mississippi State this Saturday. The game is, hang on, is it a day game? Yeah, 1 o'clock. So it's a matinee.
A true matinee.
Yeah, you can go have a nice lunch in the Vista or even at the concession stand, enjoy the game, and still have plenty of time left in the afternoon. So callers 4 and 5, each of you will get a family 4-pack of tickets to Carolina and Mississippi State, 803-404-6100. All right, Keith has been holding on during the drive around the SEC, and he is up next. Hey, Keith.
Hey, Jay. How y'all doing this evening?
Doing well, sir. Hope you are.
I am. Look, we all acknowledge, even going back to my era in the mid-'70s, that people have been influencing players to go to certain universities, and now we're in the landscape of the NIL. And, you know, some of us old-timers have had to adjust, but it seems like it's the wild, wild west now. And I would hope, as we move forward, that there's some kind of model similar to the NFL, because there's never, you're never going to equal the playing field, but let's be reasonable. Unless something changes, there's going to be the Texas oil people and all the different places that have the proceeds to spend more money, and maybe some accountability and contractual obligation to the player, and some type cap similar to what the NFL does. Or this thing's just going to, you know, it's like a snowball rolling downhill, no pun intended. But how does a senior leave Georgia and go to Miami? One reason, the money. And it's just dampering the experience. But, you know, maybe other people don't feel that way, but I see myself watching less and less of the game I love. But enjoy the show, and y'all have a great evening.
Thank you, Keith. You bring up some very fair points, and as I say, you mentioned, you know, something more in line with what the National Football League is doing. I agree, and that's a collective bargaining agreement. Now, much easier said than done when it comes to college athletics, because college athletes are not employees. They're getting ready to be paid by their universities, and yet the universities don't want to call them employees. And I'm no attorney, but I'm not sure how ultimately that's going to really jive with how things work. So I do believe that and I've said this many times, I do believe that the best amount of work that college leaders can do right now needs to be pointed toward getting a model that involves a collective bargaining agreement instead of fighting the employer. Look at how many battles they've lost in court. It's why we are where we are. I know I've said that a bunch, but it's the truth. They keep losing in court because they are breaking federal law. And in some cases, they're breaking state laws. But by and large, they are losing at the highest levels because they are breaking the laws of the United States. And now they can't get away with it anymore. And they're not going to have enough laws written that are going to protect them. They got to find a way to collectively bargain. And that'll solve so many problems. But we're not there yet. And Keith, you make a great point about the oil money in Texas or things like that. I'm not pushing back on you because you're right. They have a lot. My counter to that would be, or to my little caveat to that might be, what's it really done for Texas in the last 50 years? The answer is not that much. They have a lot of money. Sark is doing a fine job. Sark, we haven't even gotten into that today because we had so many other things to talk about. But Sark did sign a new deal. Good for him. Good for Steve Sarkisian. Good for UT to make that happen. Because I do think there's interest from the NFL in Steve Sarkisian, just maybe not yet. And Texas is going to pay him a boatload of money to hang around for a while and at least see Arch Manning through. I think Sark will ultimately be, Elijah, an NFL head coach, because I think those lines continue to blur in terms of what he has been best at. But Keith, I hear you, man. And it's all of us that love college sports are affected by this. but we are in the boat we're in because the leaders of college athletics for the last 2 or 3 decades fought at every turn some of the things that they knew they were going to lose, or at least they hoped they weren't. But come on. I mean, when you get beat 9-0 in the Supreme Court, Elijah, either you hired some really bad attorneys or you're just really naive, or both.
In the 21st century, you don't get clean sweeps in
No.
the highest court of the land like that.
No.
You don't. You just don't.
No, but they found a way. Keith, thank you. Good stuff
Impressive.
today. Appreciate it. We'll do it all tomorrow. Get you ready for Carolina, Florida, and a lot more of what's going on around college football. Y'all stay safe. Have fun in the snow. Build a snowman. Have fun. That's what it's all about around here. See you tomorrow.